I feel like I should be standing like this.
I missed that, but Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and good morning. I am Rabbi Javier Carapan, and I am joined this morning by Leslie Zucker and our wonderful technical team. Special thanks to our BOW committee for bringing us beyond our walls into our digital docents we're managing in the streaming behind the scenes. We want to let those at home know that we may be skipping some pages today due to the nature of our learning Shabbat. But if you look down, of course, at the bottom, you'll see the PDF pages. We also have a handout, but you may not have it at home. That's just how it is. But we will try to help you out. And of course, during the learning part, for those of you joining us on Facebook Live, you will be able to type some questions if you have any.
Related to the conversation at hand.
Thank you. For those of you here in person, remember that we are calling the page numbers in the square brackets. And this morning, we're doing a learning Shabbat, which means that we will stop at some part of the service. I believe we've covered at one point or another the introductory prayers, the preparations. We've done the Amidah, I think last time I was doing this. So now today is time for the Torah service. So we're trying to make the first half a little shorter so that we'll have a little more time for the Torah service. For those of you at home, again, there's no link to the Torah because although we're talking about the Torah service, we're not going to really read Torah or Haftorah today because we don't have enough time to explain and read and all that.
People get cranky when they don't get lunch.
Yes. After an hour, I think it's okay. We'll try. So, but some other so this will help. And this is all recorded. So if you want to watch it later or inform to someone, let them know. We can do that. So let's continue our service now with the preparatory, the introductory blessings, beginning on page 186 with Mode Ani. Mode Ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, החזרת לי נשבעתי בחמלה, רבה אמונתך, מודה אני לפניך, מלך. They're fantastic.
I feel like our Saturday morning group is just our Adar group year round. Just, you all bring me such joy.
what those at home couldn't, because we don't have microphones for them, is that they're clapping hands in one of the parts of the service. So we continue in the middle of page 194. 194. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, rofeh chol basar, umafli la'asot. Continue, page 196. Elohai neshama shenatata bi teorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi teorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi, tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. We continue with Pezukei de Zimra, the verses of praise on page 214, with words from Psalm 92. This is a psalm for Shabbat. This is an addition on this section of the service that happens only on Shabbat. We begin with the words in the middle of the Hebrew, Tzadik Katamar. Tzadik katamar yifrach ke'erez balvano balvano yizke shetuli bebeit Adonai bechatzot Eloheinu yafrihu orgenubun beseva deshenim lerananimu lehagi yashar Adonai Tzuri velo avlata bo. I feel like we're like a little choir ensemble sometimes of two.
That's called a duo. Except, but we have everyone here. So
Exactly. It's not quite a duo.
It's very nice. It's so nice to hear actual voices that aren't in my head.
You what do you mean? You have voices in your head?
But, when we were just here,
Oh, I see.
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Right, let's help Leslie have less voices in her head and join together on page 218 as we sing words from Psalm 150, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehallel, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehallel, hallelujah. Hallelu, hallelu, hallelu. Hallelu, hallelu, hallelu. Hallelu, hallelu, hallelu. Hallelu, hallelu, hallelu. Page 226. We're moving into another section of the service. The Shema and its blessings begins with Baruch Hu. If you're able, please stand and join us.
Yai, lai, lai, lai.
Yai, lai, lai, lai.
Yai, lai, 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 lai.
Yai, lai, 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 lai.
Yai, lai, 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 lai.
Yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, lai. Aharechu
Et Adonai.
et Adonai. HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai. HaMevorach. Leolam Vaed. Page 228. It's a section from one of the two blessings before the Shema. This one is blessing for creation, thanking God for bringing light into the world. And we sing together in the Hebrew, in the middle of the page, beginning with the words Or Chadash. Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir, al Tzion Ta'ir. Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir. כולנו נהרה לאורו ונזכה כולנו נהרה לאורו אור חדש על ציון תאיר, על ציון תאיר, אור חדש על ציון תאיר, על ציון תאיר. ונזכה כולנו נהרה לאורו, ונזכה כולנו נהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. Page 230. This is the blessing before the recitation of the Shema is one of two. And the second one is called in the morning Ahava Rabbah. And it's actually a blessing thanking God for Torah, for giving the Jewish people the Torah. And that is the great love that God has shown to our people. Ahava Rabbah, Ahavtanu, Ahavtanu Adonai, Eloheinu, Chemla Gedola, V'teram, Chamalta Aleinu, Ahava Rabbah, אהבתנו, אהבתנו, אדוני, אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה, ויתרה, חמלת עלינו. בעבור אבותינו ואימותינו שבטחו בך, ותלמדם חוקי חיים. תכוננו, תלמדנו, כן תכוננו ותלמדנו. אהבה רבה, אהבתנו, אהבתנו, אדוני, אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה, ויתרה, חמלת עלינו. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר במו ישראל באהבה. Page 232. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולי, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. כי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא, עושה פלא, עושה פלא.
צו ישראל קומה
בעזרת ישראל, ופדה חינומך יהודה וישראל, גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל. אדוני שפתי תפתחו,
ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים.
We continue together in the middle of page 248. Let us sanctify your name on earth, as it is sanctified in the heavens above, as it is written by your prophet, Holy, holy, holy is Adonai Tzvaot. God's presence fills the whole earth. Source of our strength, sovereign one, how majestic is your presence in all the earth. Blessed is the presence of God shining forth from where God dwells. God alone is our God and our Creator, our ruler and our helper. And in mercy, God is revealed in the sights of all the living. I am Adonai, your God. Adonai shall reign forever, your God, O Zion, from generation to generation. Hallelujah. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. כי אל מלך גדול, כי אל מלך גדול, וקדוש אתה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ברוך אתה אדוני האל, האל הקדוש. We continue silently through page 260. We continue together on page 367 with Al Shosha Dvarim. Al Shosha Dvarim, Al Shosha Dvarim, Al Shosha Dvarim, Ha'olam Omer. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם אומר. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים.
I love this.
על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. We didn't mean to confuse you, but you may be seated. There's no Torah coming out or
So-
anything like that.
What you at home did not see is the rabbi did not announce whether to sit or stand, and the Torah didn't come out. So there was much silent conversation among the congregants as to whether or not to sit or stand. And I think since we are talking about the Torah service,
Exactly.
what a perfect lead-in. Like, you could not ask for a better transition into learning about the Torah service
Thank you
than
so much.
that.
Go ahead.
Well, Rabbi, why do we stand normally when we sing that song at the beginning of a Torah service? Why do we stand?
We'll get there some other
Okay.
time.
Oh, did he not tell me to ask the question? I'm setting your timer for less than you said.
So, as promised, today we are concentrating on learning about the reading of the Torah. The answer is relatively quick and simple about what we stand, and it is because this section of the service that includes the reading of the Torah has always been seen as a reenactment of standing at Sinai. And I just said the word, standing at Sinai, so you're standing. So that there's no secret there. But this actually reminds me that we have had questions about when to stand and when to sit, and some of those are not as easy as the one that I just said. You may have questions about that. I'm happy to do. I don't want to burden you with too much information. But this case in particular is pretty clear why we are standing. Now, for everybody who has a handout, we're not going to use it a lot other than just to help you visualize the different parts of the Torah service. Now, the Torah service happens at least 4 times a week, and that is on Monday, Thursday, Shabbat morning, and Shabbat afternoon. And so the structure is pretty much the same for all of them. There is 5 parts. The introduction, when we do the removing of the scroll from the ark, the actual reading of the Torah. Number 3, it's only on Shabbat and holidays, the Haftarah. Then there are prayers for the community, and then there's a conclusion when we put the Torah scroll back into the ark. One thing that I think we all have to remember about the Torah service is that although we call it the Torah service, it's not really a prayer service per se. Why am I saying this? Because what do we do during the Torah service? What's the main focus of it? Reading the Torah, all right. So, reading the ancient text out loud in front of the congregation, that sounds more like what? Prayer or something else? Huh? Like what would be something else? A learning experience, thank you. So you can see there that there are 2 sort of contradictory words in the Torah service, because we think of prayers like the Shema and other things as prayers. There isn't such a thing in the Torah service. Now, there are blessings before and after, and granted and all that, but the main focus is the reading of the sacred story of the Jewish people in however we want to approach that, plus sections from other parts of the Hebrew Bible that relate or don't, as the case may be. And I'll go into all that in just a minute. But keeping that in mind, this is a tricky question, but I think a question that most of you could answer by now. What developed first? Reading the Torah as learning or the prayer service itself? Here, you have your microphone on?
I don't have I would guess reading.
And why would you guess reading?
Because that's kind of what was done at Sinai is, I got this stuff and now I'm going to share it with you. I don't think anybody prayed. They're like, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to hear it.
All right. So a good guess. We don't have to guess, actually, because it's historically accurate. We know when this happened. And it was not Sinai. So it's okay. It's a good guess.
You know what?
It's a great guess.
I'm okay being
But
wrong.
the
This is how
Hebrew
we
Bible contains the first recorded public reading of the Torah, and that is in the book, in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. And when they came back from the exile, it says that Ezra took out the book of the law and he read it in front of the people. A lot of scholars suggest that that's actually Rosh Hashanah, the first Rosh Hashanah that happened after the destruction of the first temple. There was no temple yet rebuilt, and so they read it together. Now, that doesn't prove anything, because that could have just been the fact that it's the first time that anybody got together, and so they read the Torah. That doesn't show us that the Torah is read regularly. But what we do know for sure is that the Torah reading itself, although was part of the service at the temple in bit and pieces, namely like the Ten Commandments were read, and that comes from the book of Exodus, we know historically that what we now consider the origins of synagogues were actually houses of study, in which the Torah was read aloud and other sections from the prophets, and I'll go into that in just a minute. So here's the interesting piece. The Torah service, not as a service, because you have to take the word out of there, the order of the reading of the Torah, and that's what it's called in Hebrew, Seder Kriyat Torah, the order of and the word Seder, I know things about Pesach, don't think about that. The word Seder means simply order. The order of the reading of the Torah precedes all other forms of synagogue things, all of them. Now, what also happens is that the rabbis in the times of the Talmud and afterwards had actually determined that there were certain prayers that were statutory prayers that we're supposed to say. And we covered those last time, Shema and its blessings and things like that. But the Torah service itself did not have a plan or an overall structure, because it's simple, right? It's just read the Torah. I mean, what else is there to be doing? Now, that wasn't enough for the Jewish people. So in the 9th, 10th century, we started developing a whole sort of forms of prayers around the Torah. And they were all of them had to do with a community. So for instance, things that we are familiar with, like this is a really 20th century innovation to say a Misheberach for everybody who is in need of healing. But that was part of the communal prayer inside or during the Torah service. They are, of course, the prayers that we say for the community, and they are in our prayer book. We don't always read them, but they are there. There is a prayer for the government or the state of Israel in the 20th century. There are all kinds of Misheberach, not only for those who are ill, but there's a Misheberach for everybody who comes up to the Torah. If you have a bar or bar mitzvah of another celebration. And then you also have things that we don't have in the Reform movement anymore. There are prayers for martyrs and such. It's all about the community. Right? It does go back to Sinai in the idea of the rabbis that everybody was included. So this is all about community. But the way they really evolved is that everything that has to do with the community ends up being part of the Torah service. And it could be part because the Talmud says nothing about what should be included in the Torah service, other than we read the Torah. Now, what about the Haftarah? What about the sections from the prophets? I want to hear someone who tells me the traditional explanation why we read a Haftarah. Anybody? It's a mama, it's a what's it called? A mama.
Here's what I found.
Oh, don't find anything. I don't need you. Stop it.
I mean, I can tell you what I've
Tell me
I've
what
been
you heard.
told
Yes,
is
what you
that there was a time when it was illegal to read the Torah, and therefore, so that we could still hear words of Torah without being
Very
murdered,
good.
we read
Very
the
good.
Haftorah.
Very good. That's all preposterous. It's not historically accurate. But it's okay. I wanted somebody to say it.
Not true. You know what we are? We are Mythbusters, the Torah version.
So I really I'm always thought about that. And it's like, where did this come from? And I'm sure that somebody can Google and tell us where it comes from. But the fact of the matter, the reason why there are all these stories, my guess is because, in fact, nobody knows how the Haftorah was began to be read and in the order that it was. We know this because the first record, historical record, or at least in a Jewish text, that talks about reading the Haftarah. You know who was the first guy to have been said that read Haftarah? This is not a tricky question. His name was Jesus of Nazareth.
Really?
So in the book of in the Gospel according to Luke, Jesus is goes to the local synagogue,
right.
And so he's invited to read something, and he reads a passage from the book of Isaiah. Now, what we don't know, because Luke does not explain it, is was that the reading of the day, or was just Jesus coming up and picking up a reading? Remember, that's not as easy as it sounds because we're talking about scrolls. So it's not like I can open a book and find a reading. It's kind of there, and he didn't say, and Jesus scrolled the scroll like 20 times until he found the part he wanted. So the story there has something to do with Jesus and his claims to being the Messiah, which is not what the Jewish people, from a Jewish perspective, were interested in. But we're interested in that is the first record of having an Haftorah being read. The issue here is that, unlike the Torah, and I'm going to repeat this because maybe most of you know, but just in case, there are 52 Torah portions, and we read one of those on every Shabbat. Now, that is the Babylonian custom, okay. Meaning the Jews from Babylon follow that custom to read the entire Torah in 1 year, and that is the basis for the Babylonian Talmud, and therefore that's what a lot of communities do. As you can imagine, not everybody agree. The Jews of the land of Israel read the Torah in the ancient world in a cycle of 3.5 years, depends on the years, and if we have a leap year or not. And so the sections that they read were shorter, right? Because 52, you divide that by 3, so you got three times as many. It's like, 3.5 years or so. So, although we have some kind of disagreement on that, what we do know is that the Torah is read sequentially, right? You start with Genesis and you end with Deuteronomy. Whether you read it in 1 year or 3.5, it's doesn't matter.
Right.
Now, the Haftarah, and I don't want to get again too much confused, is not sequential at all. Not only that in the ancient world, and even until today, different communities have different readings for the Haftarah. Sephardic and Ashkenazi customs are different. The sections sometimes are different. And the farther back you go in history, the more options you have. Oh, we're out of time. My goodness, I can't believe this.
You've had 13 minutes. You have 2 more.
Thank you. And the reason is because the Haftarah is also sometimes connected to the calendar, like when we're coming up here in a few weeks to Pesach. Some of the Haftarah readings have to do with Passover and not with the Torah portion. And then as we get closer to Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, the Haftarah portions leading up to Tisha B'Av, plus the next 7 Shabbatot after that, are all related to this series of warnings up to Tisha B'Av, the destruction of both the first and second temple, historically speaking, but maybe more traditionally speaking. And then from the 7 haftarot that come after that, they lead up to Rosh Hashanah, and they are kind of a uplifting series of. And some of those I read sequentially because from the Shabbat after Tisha B'Av, we begin with Isaiah chapter 40, and we read sequentially most of the verses up until Rosh Hashanah. So, so what happens is that there is no agreement on how the Haftarah ever got started, basically, because it could have just simply be that the Haftarah, when the Torah was read, was a sort of a midrash. In other words, this is the story that I'm telling you in the Torah, and this is what the prophets say about that same story. But remember, there's no agreement in the Talmud as to which sections you read when. Not until the 12th, 13th century we start seeing agreements and all that. And just to final thoughts about this, if you look at the chart that I provided, you will see that basically the Torah service, as we know it today, and it comes from about the 12th, 13th century, is that it's kind of bookended by a part when we take the Torah scroll out, and then we bring the Torah scroll back in. In the middle, we have the readings of the Torah and a section from the prophets, and then all the communal prayers. So it's pretty clear. Yes, question, we have time, sure. Oh, so the question is why the 1 year evolved to the 3 year. They're unrelated. Some communities read it through the whole year, and some read it through 3.5 years. But the real question that I was hoping that somebody will ask is, what about Simchat Torah, Rabbi?
What about Simchat Torah, Rabbi?
Thank you very much. Well, Simchat Torah is not only a holiday that is not in the Torah, despite its name, but it's not even a very old holiday either, because, listen, you have to actually have agreed to celebrate, to read the Torah in a 1 year for Simchat Torah to make any sense.
Oh,
Otherwise,
yeah.
no, they did not celebrate Simchat Torah every 3.5 years when the cycle ended. So that gets complicated because in a world where we read the Torah in 1 year, we have to make it fit so that we end the last section, the next to last of the Torah portions on the Shabbat before Simchat Torah, so we can actually read the last Haftarah, the last Torah portion on Simchat Torah and the first one. So it's a much later holiday. We're talking about 7th, 8th century, perhaps, and maybe even later, as a well, spread holiday. But finally, I do want to say that despite the fact that we do have some disagreements for the Haftarah, that nowadays all Jewish communities read the same Torah portion on the same Shabbat. Of course, in Reformed congregations and some conservative congregations, we don't read the whole section. Here, I made the decision that we will use a triennial cycle, but I'm told that it's not very common, that even in conservative synagogues, they don't use it for much. So we're kind of an outlier in that regard. The only reason why I do this is because it helps me, it forces me and whoever is leading the service to look at sections of the Torah that wouldn't otherwise do. I like just finding things that I agree with, but it's not challenging for me. So I like to find sections in the Torah that I would not otherwise read. So, and I encourage everybody to do that too. It's like, when we read a Torah portion, we often, I think, rabbis in general try to find the good part of it and then give a sermon on that. It's good. I just think that's kind of lazy. So I like to always find something that I would not have chosen for the first. So that's why I chose the 3 year. Not because we're really following the 3 year. We do not read We don't have Simchat Torah once every 3 years. Let's put it that way. So, are there any questions online or anybody else? All right.
The book that we got this from today is from a series called My People's Prayer Book. It's a really nice series. If you there's one on just the Shema and its prayers. There's this one.
About 15 volumes.
15 volumes, yeah. And I will tell you that occasionally they show up at the half-price bookstore. So you can find them online. You can order them
The
brand
book
new.
title is on the top. It says My
Yeah.
People's Prayer Book.
The series is called My People's Prayer Book. And there are, well, I don't have all of them yet. I'm working on my collection.
I think I have them all, but
yeah,
I should check.
it's a really nice resource
Right.
for information like this. As you can see,
And they're
it
also
has-
available on your Kindle if you would like them. So they're
right.
all on Kindle, so you don't have to buy the actual book. So, but this is from Kindle. I had to print it from the regular copy because Kindle doesn't. I can't really take the graphic out. It might be possible. I don't know how. So I went old school. So I hope that helps frame the Torah service. One more question here, and please. Yes.
Do the Haftorah portions correlate always with the Torah portions?
Yes. Once you have a chart, it's always the same. However, and I should say this today because I'm involved in that, the Central Conference of American Rabbis is preparing a new book of alternative haftarot. And Aviva's mom, who's a rabbi, is the editor. And Aviva and I both have a chapter on which we suggested a new haftarah for, so we have a whole new series. So I'm looking forward to the book coming out. I'll be at the CCAR convention at the end of the month. I'm going to go to the session. It's been delayed because it's supposed to be out last year, but it's not. So as soon as I get it, I'll bring it, of course, and brag about it. And Aviva will too, because she has the section there. And then you'll see then again that will be completely unique to the Reform movement in the United States and in North America, because there it will be alternative haftarah readings. Right? It's coming. So
And we can do that because there are not halachic rules about.
Well, some people may disagree with that. They are in whatever community you are, you will follow whatever tradition you have.
Whatever my group says is right.
Correct. It's usually whatever your rabbi says is right. And I'm not kidding with it.
Sure.
This is, Yes. You can look at anything. It could be like contemporary text, anything you wanted. So, yeah, but I actually presented it here. It's a poem. So when that Torah portion comes around again, I'm going to do my thing. So
the Haftorah can't have anything in it?
well,
Not anything. I mean,
in a creative context, yes. In a traditional context, absolutely not.
The
It's all
question
written
was,
there.
what types of things can be included in a Haftorah? Are you allowed to pull in poetry and songs and non-traditional and...
We didn't say songs. That's for the cantors. We only say poems. But I guess if you're a cantor, you can add songs. So...
Challenge accepted. No, I did not say that out loud.
So, so that took care of today of our reading. So we still want to keep the tradition of one communal prayer at least this morning, and that is the prayer for healing. And those of you joining us virtually, you can have access to the e-news that you received Friday, and you can also follow the link in the comments. If you'd like to offer names, you can type them in the comments. And for those of us here in person, you can say names out loud as I go around the sanctuary. Starting here. As we think of those in need of healing, we also think of those who are struggling with addiction and mental health. May the one who blessed our ancestors bring blessings of strength, compassion, and healing to those of us who struggle with the oppression of addiction, emotional distress, and mental suffering. Surround us with loving kindness, grace, and companionship, and spread over us a Sukkat Shalom, a shelter of peace. Return us to our holy dignity and restore us to wholeness of spirit, of body, and of mind. Page 371. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. As we think of those in need of healing, we turn our prayers also to those who help in healing health workers all over our city and the world during this pandemic. May those who care for the sick with their hands, their voices, and their hearts be blessed with courage and stamina. May those who pursue healing through medical skill and knowledge be blessed with insight, patience, and compassion. May all of us, the sick and the well together, find courage and hope. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. We conclude the service for the reading of the Torah on page 374 with Etz Chaim. Etz Chaim hi למחזיקים בה ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם בכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו Page 586. If you are able, please stand and join us for Aleinu L'Shabeach.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד Ushmo, Ushmo, Ushmo Echad.
As we prepare for our moment of remembrance, I invite you to turn to page 595. Yesh kochavim, there are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved, and their memory keeps shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways that we remember. As the congregation, we are observing the Shloshim period for my aunt, Irma Karapan de Massa, and we're observing the yort sides of the following members of our congregation: Nadine Helen Agron, Glenn Ammon, Francis G. Bean, Louis Brown, Jason Paris Cohen, Beatrice Cohn, Henrietta Jean Crouch, Gary Charles Davison, Ernie Esser, Ann Goldstein, Maurice Goldstein, Francis Rabikoff Haith, Neil Bade Hamovitz, Louis Holman, Sidney Heiken, Dusha Idelson, Jacob Myron, Gertrude Schlafstein, Gus Schlesinger, Mark Shaw, Molly Shimkin, Alvin B. Slufman, Sophie Stern, Linda Stein, Eugene Yusso, Norman Roy Warren, Chuck Wasserman, Francis Lee Weinstein, Jack Weinstein, Mary Wickersham, Ray Wolf, Stanley Zeskind. Zichronam livracha, may the memories be for a blessing. Page 598. If you're able, please stand as we join together in Kaddish Yatom, the mourners' Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alema divra chiruteh ve'yamlich malchuteh, bechayechon uvyamechon uvechayei dechol beit Israel, ba'agala ובזמן קריב, אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום ממרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, Amen.
Time for some announcements.
This is Aviva. It's nice to be with everybody physically and virtually. Thank you to Rabbi Katapan and Leslie Zucker for leading our service. And thank you to Dave Zucker for, again, going above and beyond our walls. Thank you. A few quick announcements. Next Friday, we will come back together for our next Shabbat service on March 18th. Hard to believe, but we're almost halfway through March. So March 18th, join us in person and online. But we have many things going on before next Friday. First of all, tomorrow, everyone is welcome to join me for a virtual Hamantash and Bake. So because we're not quite back to being in the Beth Torah kitchen together with COVID, we will be in our own kitchens, Zooming and baking Hamantashen and schmoozing. It will be wonderful. 10 a.m. until noon. The Zoom link is in the e-news and on the website. And then, looking further ahead into the week, we have multi-access song session with Leslie on Tuesday at 7. All are welcome in person and online. And on Wednesday, we will be preparing Deanna Rose farmstead for the warmer months. So if you're interested in putting on some work boots and mulching and getting the farm ready, Scott Franklin is the point person, and the sign up is all over, website, e-news, it's all over the place. And then we have Purim. So Purim begins Wednesday night through Thursday, and there are two things going on Thursday. So first of all, the Rabbinical Association Megillah reading at 11 a.m., that is happening on Thursday. And then following, we have our big community-wide Purim celebration at Children's Mercy Park, which is the home of Sporting KC. Beth Torah will be running the Mishloach Manot station. So it will be very fun. The registration link is online. Registration is requested. And at this point, over 500 people have registered. So we have Mishloach Manot materials ready to go, which is very exciting.
That's our station, right?
That is our station. And I just realized a little clue in to everyone, online and in person. The bags I ordered are not large enough because I bought too much stuff to put in them. So I have to order larger bags now. Anyways, so join us.
What's your thing?
Oh no, we need to use everything. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. And one final Purim event is we will be going to Crane Brewery 1 week from tonight. So Michael Crane is one of our fellow members, and he is so excited to welcome us to his brewery because one of the traditions on Purim is to drink a little bit. So 21 plus, it will be a great event. And last, but very not least, Passover is around the corner now that Purim is here. So Leslie will be leading the service for spiritual renewal with JFS next weekend. Believe it or not, on the 20th, on Sunday. So mark your calendars, it will be wonderful. I think that's a lot going on. So with that, Shabbat Shalom. And of course, we have some Hamantaschen for to-go, Nag, to prepare our stomachs for Purim.
Thank you, Aviva.
And I'm going to have a special guest at my song session. I used to sing in a duo called Street Corner Choir, and my old duo.
Wait a minute, is it not a choir or a duo? Did you just hear it? A street corner choir.
Yes.
It's a duo, not a choir.
Regardless, David will be here with me singing, and after our prayer session, we're going to do a little mini concert.
It's incredible how things come around so quickly. We joined together in Israel Ve'horaita. It's in your handouts, I believe. And
Yes.
the words are Torah, Ora, hallelujah kind of
Man,
thing.
never
If you're
give a
able,
rabbi
please
trouble.
stand.
They're always going to get the last word.
Israel ve'oraita ve'kudesha ve'richu chadu. Israel ve'oraita ve'kudesha ve'richu chadu. Torah ora, Torah ora, hallelujah, hallelujah. Torah ora, Torah ora, hallelujah, hallelujah. Torah ora, Torah ora, hallelujah, hallelujah. Torah ora, Torah ora, hallelujah. Israel ve'oraita ve'kudesha ve'richu chadu. Israel ve'oraita ve'kudesha ve'richu chadu. Torah ora, Torah ora, hallelujah, hallelujah. Torah ora, Torah ora, hallelujah, hallelujah. Torah ora, Torah ora, hallelujah, hallelujah. Torah ora, Torah ora, hallelujah. Shabbat shalom, everybody, and Chag Sameach.
Take care of each other out there.